Welcome to Prime 9, the countdown show that covers the very best in baseball. Guaranteed to start arguments, not end them. This week, it's the 9 most unbreakable records of all time. Why 9? That's baseball. 9 players, 9 innings, Prime 9. In the last 3 decades, we have seen some of baseball's most cherished records fall by the wayside. Rose passes Cobb.
This certainly his crowning achievement.
The Iron Man passes the Iron Horse.
Great memory.
Ricky runs by Brock.
Here comes the throw. He's got it.
The Express passes everyone.
The remarkable Ryan has done it again.
There were those who thought these records would never be broken, and yet they were.
They did it with class, they did it with elegance.
And so we ask, are their numbers so incredible they are unattainable by anyone?
There it is, the record.
That is the crux of this episode, the 9 marks in baseball history that we believe will stand forever.
He's the new all-time hit king.
Our ground rules are simple. These 9 numbers are records, not feats.
What more can you say?
Ted Williams is the last man to hit 400, but that's not a record, it's a feat.
Is there anybody who can get him out?
Bob Gibson's 1.12 ERA is also a feat. Now that's another show altogether.
Oh, look at that curveball.
This show is simply about records.
And the crowd stands up, and well, they should.
So, let's get started and find out if you agree with our top 9 unbreakable Major League records, starting with number 9 on Prime 9.
Now pitching for the Dolphins, number 38, Eric Gagne.
When he entered the game, teams knew their time was up. Because starting in 2002, just 2 words said it all.
Game over. That's how they feel nowadays when this guy comes to the mound.
I remember the hype of Dodger Stadium. When the ball was in his hands, he was just dominant.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
It wasn't that he was going to get you out, it was how he wanted to get you out. He could get you out with a fastball,
99 miles an hour.
curveball,
Slow curveball. Oh my gosh.
changeup.
Strike 3 ball.
He could pick his poison with which to get you out.
Looking kind of psychotic out there.
More methodic than psychotic, Gagne didn't blow a single save opportunity from August of 2002 through July of 2004.
His 84th consecutive save.
Precedented in the history of Major League Baseball.
Eric Gagne's 84 straight saves. It's unbelievable because it's about execution. How many times you watch a baseball game, a swinging bunt, a broken bat single?
Let's say every inning was a clean inning where he had nobody on base. That in and of itself is still difficult to think that 84 times out of 84 you could be that perfect.
Will we ever see this run of perfection again?
It's hard to imagine. We've seen great closers before and since. Trevor Hoffman,
one of the premier relievers in baseball.
Francisco Rodriguez.
Got him on a strikeout.
To think that a pitcher is going to go out and succeed 84 consecutive times, the way the game is played, it's such an offensive game, it's very, very difficult to believe that will ever be matched.
Oh, what a pitch.
That'll be a record that'll stand for a long time, if not forever.
1941, that's a memorable year, yes.
Now that's an understatement. For having already guided his Yankees to 4 straight titles, Joe had a signature season in '41. And it all began on May 15th.
I recall it was a fellow by the name of Edgar Smith of the White Sox. I got a base hit, didn't mean very much.
But in time, it would mean everything. For DiMaggio had embarked on a 2-month stretch of consistency that defied both the baseball gods and odds.
Hitting safely in 20 straight games is remarkable. 30, amazing. And 40, almost unheard of.
I thought I was doing pretty good as it was, no matter how far that streak went.
Joe was no stranger to hitting streaks, having hit in 61 straight games in the Pacific Coast League, and the dimensions of Yankee Stadium offered plenty of opportunities for base hits.
Yankee Stadium, folks, was 461 feet to center field, 457 left center, 447 right center, but this guy never made an out.
During the streak, a fan made off with Joe's lucky bat. The fan might not have been so lucky.
When he reached for his bat out of the bat rack, his bat was not there. And then the story got into the newspapers, and 2 or 3 days later, the bat showed up.
Some of Joe DiMaggio's New Jersey friends found a way to get that bat back. Perhaps no one really wants to know how they got that bat back.
The hits just kept coming. The streak kept building. The record crept closer. Did Joe feel the pressure?
Pressure didn't mean anything to him. Pressure meant he's going to dig in more.
Joe reached the first milestone on July 2nd when he broke the record of 44 straight games set in 1897 by Wee Willie Keeler.
The line drive into the stands, Joe turned a new page in baseball history. He made it 45.
He'd go on to make it 56 straight. And although Ted Williams hit 406 that year, Joe's incredible streak helped make him the MVP.
To hit for a third of the season consecutively, that's pretty crazy stuff.
Joltin' Joe's 56-game hitting streak is the holy grail of baseball consistency. Everyone seeks it out, but only some have come close.
I think that now somebody gets into DiMaggio area would be cameras around the guy 24/7. I think that would break a guy before he would be broken on the field. Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's ever going to be broken.
Welcome back to Prime 9, featuring the most unbreakable records of all time. You've seen the 9th and 8th best. We now continue with number 7. On September 11th, 1985, Cincinnati's favorite son was about to make history.
Rose looking for hit 4192. If you have a lump in your throat, you're only human.
The record of 4,191 career hits was held by Ty Cobb for almost 60 years. But in 1963, Pete Rose put on a major league uniform and unleashed his relentless approach to hitting.
Pete Rose was a line drive hitter, a guy who used the whole field, a guy who was going to be a tough out.
Base hit for Pete Rose. Oh, what a way to start this night.
Pete was a leadoff guy. He probably had 650 at-bats every year, but to average almost 200 hits every year for 20-something years, that's just incredible.
Rose lines one.
He probably had the most desire to succeed every at-bat of any player in the history of baseball. And he was a switch hitter. So, you know, you have 2 different swings, 2 different mentalities.
Well, Pete Rose keeps rolling along.
I don't think any of us were surprised. I really think that anybody who watched the game in that era felt like Pete was going to be the one to get there.
And so Pete came to the plate on that day in '85, just 1 hit away from the record.
I think God could have been pitching that night. I'd have got a base hit the first time up. I just knew I was going to get a base hit.
2-1 pitch from Shaw into left center. There it is. Rose has eclipsed Cobb. That's number 4,192.
You don't know what it feels like. I get a 9-minute standing ovation. The cameras were just popping.
For Pete Rose, this certainly his crowning achievement.
And that was the only time in my life that I was ever on a baseball field. I didn't know what to do.
Rose would retire with 4,256 career hits.
40, how many hundred hits? 42? God, that's ridiculous, man.
But too ridiculous for any of today's hitters to eclipse? It seems so.
I remember reading a math study that ranked all of the current players, and it gave Derek Jeter a 1% chance of beating Pete Rose, and no one else had even a percent.
Whatever it takes, he does.
21 years of 200 hits, you're still not there. I think that's a very high mountain to climb.
At just 5'6", the Cubs' Hack Wilson did not look much like the other sluggers of his day, but one memorable year he loomed larger than all the rest.
1930 was a year of phenomenal hitting. It was a Wild West show. Instead of shooting off sick guns, they were swinging bats.
The entire National League hit .303 that year, and Hack drove in an unfathomable 191 runs, breaking the old mark of 175 set by Lou Gehrig in 1927. Of course, Hack had plenty of help at the top of the lineup.
On his team, he was one of 5 players to hit over .335 that year. So there were a lot of men on base when Hack came to the plate.
191 RBI has been the record now for almost 80 years, although a few of Hack's contemporaries did come pretty close. Lou Gehrig in 1931, Hank Greenberg in '37, and Jimmy Fox in 1938.
It's a common saying in baseball that every batter loves his base hits, and I'm no exception.
But what about today? Is there someone out there who could take a hack at Hack? A fast start would be key.
To reach Hack Wilson's record for RBIs in a season, a player has to be nearly to 100 by the All-Star break.
He's got 101 before the All-Star break.
It's one thing to hit the ball over the fence and score a run and get an RBI. But the key is, are there guys on base in front of you, and are you able to come through in those situations?
Manny Ramirez had 165 one year, which is remarkable. But you just don't see those astronomical RBI figures being reached anymore.
That'll be a real difficult one to break.
Welcome back to Prime 9, featuring the most unbreakable records of all time. The most saves in a row and the most consecutive games with a hit have checked in at 9 and 8 respectively, followed by the record for career hits and RBI in one season, which means it's time for number 5.
To me, that mound's your mound and that's your territory, and you want the hitter to know that you look at it that way.
Baseball's greatest strikeout pitcher, the Ryan Express.
There was a time when 3,000 strikeouts was, Hall of Fame worthy, and then he almost doubles that.
Strikeout number 5,000 for Nolan Ryan.
When you look at a strikeout record, you have to have a pitcher that was blessed with that type of ability.
The grunt told you it was a fastball.
Then they have to be blessed with the ability to pitch for a long time.
And Nolan complimented that blessing with a tireless work ethic.
Nolan Ryan was a physical anomaly.
Your legs play a big role in pitching.
He just had an amazing will to perform and to work.
You can't pitch without your legs being strong.
He was almost a freak of nature because he could throw that baseball almost at 100 miles an hour at the age of 42 years old.
He just blew it by.
Be able to throw as hard as he did for as many years as he did is just mind-boggling. 5,700 strikeouts plus. That's just a sick stat, in my opinion.
So is it possible in this day and age for any pitcher to break Ryan's strikeout record? It's not likely.
What Nolan Ryan has accomplished as far as strikeouts, nobody will ever do that again because they don't pitch the innings.
And now it's up to the bullpen.
Starting pitchers are comfortable in today's game of only going 7 innings.
Great job.
You got to pitch 20 years. You got to be just as good at the end of your career as the beginning, and have very few injuries throughout, so I don't see it happening.
To put Nolan's strikeout total into perspective, consider that Randy Johnson retired with an incredible 4,875 strikeouts in his career.
He struck him out.
Yet Johnson still finished more than 800 strikeouts behind Ryan. No one is catching this express.
One of the greatest feats in the history of this great game. Henderson with a good lead, and he got a big jump.
From the moment he walked onto a Major League Baseball field, he was something special.
There goes Ricky.
He could read any little tip that the pitcher would give him, so when he pushes off, he's gone.
When it came to stolen bases, there was no contest, first of all. I mean, there was a throw, but there was no contest.
Ricky's going. He stole it.
Ricky was as close to unstoppable as a Major League Baseball player can be.
The greatest base stealer of them all.
And Ricky could make that claim once he caught the great Lou Brock.
Ricky had that passion to challenge you. He had base running arrogance.
That arrogance helped Ricky first break Brock's single-season record.
He is safe at second. He's stolen 119.
And then the all-time mark of 938.
He's going. Here comes the throw. He's got it.
The all-time Major League stolen base leader.
Lou Brock was a symbol of great base stealing. But today, I'm the greatest of all time.
How amazing is this Hall of Famers record? Consider that a player would have to steal 70 bases a year for the next 20 years, and he'd still be 6 short.
Ricky said, I can get in there easy.
No one is ever going to touch this mark, especially not the way the game has changed in the last decade, where power has taken precedence over speed.
The home run means a little bit more now.
Look at this baby ride. Get up, get up, get up. Oh, yeah.
So you're not going to take the chance of sacrificing a potential caught stealing.
Safe! No, no!
Ricky's all-time marks for runs scored and leadoff home runs may someday be challenged. But as for stolen bases, he's safe.
The greatest in the game at stealing a base, Ricky Henderson.
The New York Yankees, world champions. Most successful franchise of the century.
26 world championships. No team in professional sports has more.
It's impressive when you walk up to Yankee Stadium and you see 26 world championships. They want to remind you just how successful they've been over the years, and I don't blame them.
And in the midst of their run that set the bar for sports excellence, the Yankees did something that is almost beyond comprehension.
The Bombers did it again. 5 World Series in a row. They made baseball history. What a team.
So how do you win 5 in a row? It starts with the manager. And despite his common perception, Casey Stengel was a shrewd baseball man.
The press had fun with him, but this was a brilliant baseball mind.
Casey pushed all the right buttons to keep this talent-laden roster on an even keel. And before they knew it, they had a ring for every finger.
It was a team that was unparalleled for an era in terms of what it accomplished.
The last 2 teams to win 3 straight World Series were the Oakland A's from 1972 through 74.
The Oakland A's captured their 3rd successive World Championship.
And more recently, the Yankees from 98 through 2000.
The New York Yankees have won their 3rd straight championship.
But to reach 5 in a row, you'd have to go back to the era in which those Yankees played.
It was a lot easier to do those days because there was only 8 teams in each league. And if you had the best team, you're going to go to the World Series.
You can't do it today, and I'll tell you why. We had to win 4 games to be the world champions. Now you have to win 11 games.
The current playoff format is indeed a roadblock, but so is free agency. Teams just don't stay together like they did back in the 50s.
The element now, when you're seeing new teams in the World Series and different teams winning, the Yankees' 5 straight world championships will never be broken because of parity.
I make it a point never to say never, but the sheer nature of the Yankees' feat, it's just not going to happen.
We now return to Prime 9, where this week we're focusing on the most unbreakable records in the history of baseball. To qualify for this show, a record has to be so off the charts that we feel there's no conceivable way any current or future player could pass it by. Now it's time for the toughest of all. 2 records that, above all the others, will never be broken. We begin with number 2.
I'm learning as a hitter, so all of that, is helping me become a better ball player, and maybe someday soon I'll be in a big league uniform. Big league uniform. Big league uniform.
Cal Ripken Jr. would slip into that uniform in 1981, and on May 30th of '82, he would embark on a journey that almost defied belief.
You live your life, you play your career in a certain way to try to be the best that you can be.
I don't think I have any secret that I can dispel at this point, and then everybody will play 1,000 consecutive games. It's just a little bit of luck and a lot of desire.
I think everybody realizes down deep inside, in order to accomplish something, you have to give yourself to the task.
The shortstop now playing in 2,000 consecutive games in a row.
It was a number most thought Lou Gehrig would hold on to forever. But now the Iron Man would join the Iron Horse.
And let it be said that number 8, Cal Ripken Jr. has reached the unreachable star.
Once it got to that point, they dropped the banner. And I remember coming out and acknowledging the fans, and they just kept clapping.
The fans would not stop, seemingly in honor of what Cal represented.
He embodied what a lot of people felt when they came to the baseball field: work ethic, desire, stick-to-itiveness.
He's a guy who just showed up and gave 100% every single day for years and years and years. He was baseball's everyman.
Oh, now I'm loose.
Cal could have stopped there, but he added another 501 straight games. So is the record his forever? It's a luck.
First thing that comes to mind, 2632, is just, it's ridiculous. I say this affectionately, he's a freak.
There was probably many games where he wasn't 50%, much less 100%, and he went out and played.
It's easy to call in sick, it's easy not to show up, but if you push through, you find that you can.
But to play every game for more than 16 straight seasons? No, Cal's testament to sheer endurance will never be challenged.
I couldn't imagine playing 26-32 in a row. It's an unbelievable feat, never be broken again.
We will never see anything like this again.
I cannot see anybody going through year after year after year and be able to go out there and play in the lineup.
Big round of applause for the Iron Man.
Our pitching version of an Iron Man is the owner of the #1 Unbreakable record. What he did was so amazing. The award for pitching excellence bears his name.
Cy Young, he won more games than any other pitcher.
I would love to go back in a time capsule and see Cy Young pitch. How he could start over 900 games, how he won 511 games.
Back when Cy Young pitched, pitchers were starters and relievers, so there was more opportunity for decisions.
You look at the scope of what it takes to win 300 games.
Tom Glavine has become the 23rd pitcher to win 300 career games.
You've got to go 20 years of winning 15 games, and you think about the reality of guys being able to do that. It's just difficult to break.
Forget 15 wins. Cy Young won 30 games 5 times.
And that direct gaze stared down many a nervous batter.
Denny McLain was the last man to win 30 games in 1968. And with the way the game has changed, it's doubtful anyone will reach that mark again.
It's so much more of a specialized game that now a starter can be pretty successful pitching 6 innings, and they say, well, you did a good job. We're going to go to the bullpen.
You're good. I mean, you're at 112 for 6 innings. That's plenty.
We're having the argument now that whether or not anybody after myself or Randy Johnson is going to win 300 games in this game anymore, and then realize Cy Young was 211 beyond that. There's no way anybody's going to break that record.
Before we go, we must point out that if Ichiro continues to hit at his current pace for the next 6 years, he will catch and pass Rose.
He's a new all-time hit king, number 258.
But he got his first 1,278 in Japan, and they don't count in the Major League record books. And what is it about shortstops that enables them to play so many games in a row, especially since it is such a physically demanding position? Of the 10 longest consecutive games played streaks in big league history, 4 of them belong to shortstops. Ripken is the king, but shortstops Everett Scott, Joel Sewell, and Miguel Tejada. Each played in more than 1,000 straight games, too. Well, that ends our streak of 30 straight minutes of great baseball. That's our Prime 9. What's yours?